All right, guys, we'll see you next week. Until then, adios.
You are experiencing Conversations from the Darkside. Please stand by.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the inaugural edition of Conversations from the Darkside. My name is Amigo Aaron. I am your MC for this evening, joined as always by my comrade, my co-conspirator, and my partner in crime, John Boat of Carshaller.
Good evening, everyone. I'm doing just fine.
Outstanding. So this is a little bit outside of our normal path this evening as we kick off a show that veers to the far left and right of our usual fare. You know, here in West Virginia, the leaves are becoming a little more orange. The sky's a little darker. There's a chill in the air. October's here. And you know what that means. It's Halloween season. And so we decided that this would be a great time to hop online and try something a little bit different, a little bit more strange, unusual, macabre, if you will. And so we are kicking off Conversations from the Darkside. Now, what is this show? Well, really, this is a show for you, the listeners and viewers, to chime in. We want to hear from you. We are merely conduits through which your voice flows. And you will have a chance to call in and speak with us every week on a different topic. And the easiest way to do that is you see at the bottom of the screen a web address. This is a address that will take you directly to a Discord room. When you go to that room, you will be there with some friends, and it is like being in a classroom. When you want to speak, you raise your hand, and Boat, who is manning the controls, will pick you out of the crowd, bring you up on the stage with me and Boat, and you will be speaking with us live on the air. And when you're done, you can hop out and hang back and finish watching us on Twitch. It's that simple, Boat. What do you think?
Let's get it started, man. And if you're currently in the audience, don't wait for nobody else to be raising their hand. When you raise your hand, you will be part of the queue. And so if you want to speak, when you enter the room, just raise your hand and you'll automatically get in the line.
Beautiful. Now, this week's topic, we figured we'd start off with a softball, Boat. The topic, what's the strangest thing you've ever seen? The strangest thing you've ever seen. We will take anyone on that topic. Raise your hand now. We will let you in. And I believe, Boat, do we have our first visitor tonight?
We do. We have our first visitor. Hello, caller. Who are you, and where are you calling from?
Hey, everybody. First-time listener, first-time caller to the Conversations from the Darkside show.
Right.
I'm calling in from Oklahoma City, Oklahoma.
Very good.
This is, I'm very excited about your show because I have been a fan of the unexplained and paranormal my whole life. When I was a kid, I used to go to the school library, and the librarian would call me Agent 001 because in the Dewey Decimal System, 001 is where the books about Bermuda Triangle and UFOs and Bigfoot, everything I checked out was from the 001.
Yes.
And I used to read these books incessantly, and I remember I took them home, and my dad saw me reading these books. At that time, I had a book about ghosts. And my dad said, let me tell you something. If you ever see a ghost, don't run away from it. Run towards it. And because you got to know. You got to know what these things are. Don't, if you see, I can't think of anything better than Death by Bigfoot. Like that, because for those last few seconds, you would know. You would know what has happened, So I just want to set this up by saying that I've been into this stuff my whole life. For my honeymoon, we took a cruise specifically east of Florida so that we could go through the Bermuda Triangle. Do that. I have been to Lake Champlain, which is up in the Adirondack mountains of New York, because they have supposedly a sea monster there called Champ.
Yes.
I did not see Champ, but I sat there and watched, and I've been to the, my uncle lives in the Kiamichi Mountains in Oklahoma, which is one of the biggest hotspots for Bigfoot sightings. Oklahoma is 9th in the country for Bigfoot sightings, but per capita, Oklahoma is number 1 for Bigfoot sightings.
How much woods do you have out there? I always thought of Oklahoma as sort of flat and sort of like crop laden. I didn't think of you guys having a bunch of woods out there.
Oh yeah. I mean, it would. I mean, if they didn't mow it down, I think it would all be woods.
Oh,
I mean, it's there's woods everywhere. Sure, yeah.
I thought it was like plains. That's I guess Kansas is more like that than Oklahoma.
There's plenty of that too. I'm
Yeah.
not gonna lie, but I'm gonna tell you a story here in a minute about UFOs. But I want to tell you this. I have been to Mount Rainier in Washington State. Mount Rainier was the first official sighting. That was the UFO sighting that was reported by Kenneth Arnold, who told reporters that he saw flying objects that were unidentified, which is where the term comes from. And he described them as saucers skipping over water. And so that is where the term flying saucers came from. So I've been to Mount Rainier. I went when there was that big Gulf Breeze UFO flap in Florida. I went to Gulf Breeze. I stood outside hoping to see a UFO. Of course, I've been to the International UFO Museum in Roswell and done all that stuff. And my wife and I even went to, we got these pretty sketchy instructions on where Area 51 was. And we drove out miles and miles outside through the desert until we got to a sign, and I'm paraphrasing this, that said, basically, at this point, if you cross this line, you could be arrested or fined or shot. And so we did not go to Area 51, but we did. We went to wherever that line was.
Close enough, right?
That we were not supposed to cross. But a lot of my interest in UFOs and all this stuff goes all the way back to the summer, and I believe this was the summer of 1981. And
The year I was born.
No.
1981. I was 8, 9, maybe, depending on, I guess I was 8. Hadn't had my birthday yet. And the neighborhood I grew up in, everybody, like, all the houses are on half-acre lots. And then there are a lot of them, there were half acres in between the houses. So there was lots of fields where we would go out and play football and just play sports and play games. And one of the things we would do when it was almost starting to get dark is we would go out and we would play hide and seek or ghost in the graveyard, all these kinds of games where you would all the kids in the neighborhood would show up and you'd run around and hide, And so we were outside, and everybody was hiding. Like, one person was looking for us, and there's, a couple dozen kids, and all different ages too, just hiding in our spots. And I was hiding, like, in between this building and a fence, like an outbuilding, and I was squeezed up in there, and I couldn't see anything around me. It's just kind of dark, but all I could see is this little sliver of sky. And as I looked up, I saw the strangest thing. It was something in the sky, and there were lights rotating around it. And by the way that the lights were moving, you could tell that it was round. Whatever it was, it wasn't like, a blimp. It wasn't like a plane. It was because it was moving really slowly, And these lights are just going around and around it. And the way that I remember it, and this may be my mind playing tricks, but the way that I remember it is that it was almost like a movie scene, that every kid just slowly started coming out of their hiding spots and walking out. Like, the game, all of a sudden, nobody wanted to play the game because everybody saw this thing, and we all started walking, like everybody just came out and started walking out into the open to look at this thing. And the way that it was coming was towards this, across a field. I mean, it was way up in the air, but it was coming over a field. And some of the kids that were out there started running, And I remember not running away from it, but running towards it, like running towards that field, and just remembering what my dad had said, Like, I gotta know. Like, is this a like, I mean, this is after Close Encounters and things, and if this thing was gonna take me up, like, I gotta know, And I remember everybody else was standing back, and I had just run out, and this thing got closer and closer, and as it kind of started to come overhead, those lights kind of shifted into letters. And as it came over further, it appeared to be some sort of round LED advertising sign attached to the bottom of a helicopter. And as it flew over, I distinctly remember it said, "Eat Campbell's soup." And I've never been more disappointed in my life. I thought for sure that was it, that they were going to take me up and that I was going to be like some kid in a movie where I, went on space adventures and stuff. And all the other kids were making fun of me. They were like, "Oh, he thought he was going to space. He was going to go be with his Star Wars friends." And I was like, you
shouldn't feel too bad. I'll tell you why. Because I had a similar thing happen. Me and Teresa were driving down the interstate, and we saw flashing lights circling around the parking lot that was beside a place down here called Liberty Square. And people were pulling off the road and looking at this and pointing up, and we were like, now's our chance. So we pulled off the interstate, went over to look at this thing. We're all gawking at it, and we're like, it's so close, it's so close. And then it finally came out of the sky, and it was an inflatable, remote-controlled Spider-Man. Is what it was. So, and I was an adult.
I feel like that's something aliens might send.
Yeah.
To send a message. They're like, this is something the Earthlings can relate to.
Yes.
We've done our research. They are into Spider-Man. This will get their attention.
Now, we do have a question from the chat. What do you guys make of Bob Lazar?
I'm assuming you know who that is, Flack.
Yes.
If I'm not mistaken, he was the guy who claims to have formerly worked at Area 51. Is that right? Am I getting that right?
Yeah, and he came out, he basically produced drawings and models and all this stuff. And Bob Lazar, there's a great documentary that's not too old, maybe 5 years old, something like that, about Bob Lazar. It's really good if you want to kind of get the whole, general idea of who he is and stuff. The problem with Bob Lazar is the same. That's the same problem like with what's his name, Ed Walters, the guy from the Gulf Breeze UFO sightings, which is they're believable, but then they say things that are proven to be unbelievable or not true. And so like Ed Walters, said, "I saw this UFO, I saw this stuff," and other people saw it. There were hundreds of people out there, but then later he produces more detailed photos of the UFO. And then when he moved out of his house, the new people that moved in found a model that looked just like that UFO that had been hidden in his attic and left behind.
Problematic.
So, yeah. And so that's the same thing with Bob Lazar. I mean, he seems, when you watch him, he seems like a legit guy. He's, seems on the level, but there are certain things. I think there were some things about his college education where he said, "I graduated with this degree," and then go back and they go, "No, he didn't. He didn't go to that school." And so when you start getting caught in the little things, it makes it harder to believe the bigger things. Also, I would say the other evidence that he's not telling the truth is that no one has shot him.
Yeah.
Because I think I think you disappear when you say that you want to go on live TV and talk about stuff like that. I think they have ways of convincing you. And I will say this, I can't say that this is why I wanted to get a job for the FAA, but I will say when I did get a job for the FAA, I secretly thought, man, I hope there's some UFO servers. I hope there's some information that we've been gathering on UFOs that they're going to let a tech support guy making $10 an hour have access to.
Of course, if you'd found it,
we're going to let you in
shot.
on this one, Rob.
You'd be dead already too, there, Rob.
Well, that's what. Hold on. Oh, sorry, I got Bob Lazar in my closet.
Oh, yeah.
Over here, yeah. But yeah, so that's the only thing is that I want to believe him, and his stuff is so detailed, and he talks about the anti-gravity stuff, and he's got really good information, but he's been caught in so many other things that aren't true that it just makes you wonder, if he will tell fibs about the little stuff, would he tell fibs about the big stuff?
Very good. So, in conclusion, the strangest thing you ever saw was a flying soup ad. I just want to make sure we get that down before we let you go. Flying soup ad. Right, put that on the list, Boat.
Campbell's, right. Eat Campbell's soup. That is, if there's two things aliens want you to know, it's to eat more soup. Brought to you by Spider-Man.
Very good. Thanks, Flack. We appreciate it. Jack Flack,
Thank you, guys. Good luck with the new show.
Thank you, Flack. That was interesting, Boat. Hey, that shows you sometimes the strangest thing you ever saw could be the fakest thing you ever saw. You never know. So, Boat, why don't we take a quick break, let someone hop in, and we will be right back with more Conversations from the Dark Side.
You are experiencing Conversations from the Darkside.
Hello, Spartan. Tell us who
Hello.
are you and where are you coming from?
My name is Spartan, and I'm actually in the mountains of West Virginia.
Wonderful.
Spartan is a oft present in the TeamSpeak Regulars section of our Discord. In fact, I would say he's the King Dong of the TeamSpeak Regulars. Some of you might know Spartan as my good buddy Pat. We know Pat. He's a good guy, and I've known him for a long time now. I know Pat. I know you, and I know you've had all kinds of wacky experiences.
I just sat there for a little bit trying to decide which one I wanted to bring up because a lot of them you've even been involved in. So I was debating, but I'll put myself under the bus on this one. I grew up actually in the same town you guys you live in, and the house I lived in was originally it was built during the railroad when the railroad was being built. So it was a very old house, one of the first ones built in the town, but dealing with the railroad. But later it ended up becoming a funeral parlor in the front with a doctor's office in the back, which always concerned me that the doctor would also be associated with the funeral parlor, because that didn't give you a lot of hope at that point. But
good point.
I just
yeah, you got a point there.
Anyway, whatever the case, so I didn't really pay any attention to that until I got older and had someone who actually remembered it, an old friend of my grandfather's that came over to visit once and remembered when it was a funeral home, and where we had our couch and you were looking at the television, right where the television was where they laid the caskets out and they had the viewings. So the viewings were held in my living room, where my TV was. So, but when I was younger, and I'd say in my early teens, I loved to scare my brothers. It was just a great pastime of mine, because the one nearest my age was jumpy anyway. So I was like, and he was a few years older than I was, so he would go out on dates or work late, in the evening or something sometimes, and he would come home. So if I was awake when he came home, all the lights would be out, of course. I would hide somewhere in the house, and when he would come by, I'd jump out and scare him, and he would yell and hit me, and I would yell, and but still, it was fun. The initial shock was great, and he wouldn't talk to me for a day or so. So one night, I was awake. I heard him come in, so I'm like, this is going to be great. My bedroom was right at the top of the stairs, and he had to pass my bedroom to get to his. So I heard him come in one night and milling around downstairs. So I crawled out of my bed and I crawled across the floor, and I got right inside my doorway, and I counted. I knew how many steps there were in the staircase, so I was going to count his steps because it was an old wooden staircase. You could hear people come up, and I was going to wait until his head got about even with the top floor, and I was going to just jump out and kind of like be face to face with him and scream, not thinking that he could fall back down the stairs and kill himself.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that myself.
That wasn't at the time. That was not part of the plan. It was just to get a good scare. And so I heard him walk down the hallway, and I heard him hit that first step. And one of the steps was hollow. I don't know why, but it had a different sound than all the other ones did, like had a crack in it or something. So you heard thump, thump, boom. You hit the hollow step. Then you have to hit the landing, the thump. Couple steps on the landing, and then 1, 2, blah, and I just jump out, and there's no one there. I mean, nothing.
That's payback for attempting to scare your brother down the stairs backwards. That's what you get.
Yeah, I guess. So I'm just like, well, this isn't good. And everybody in my family had always said they'd seen things in the house or heard things in the house or people were in the house. And I'd never encountered anything like that until right then. And at that point, I was just like, nope, there's somebody here other than me. And because there were heavy footsteps, And so I jumped back in bed, and of course, you can't sleep then. So my back's pressed against the wall, and I'm like covered up. The covers are wrapped around me, and I'm just sitting there staring at my door. And then later on, I hear a door close, and I hear thump, thump, walk through the house, and you hear foot on the stairs, boom, 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 coming up the stairs. And it gets to the top, and I see a shadow, and I say, hey. And my brother sticks his head in, and he goes, what are you still doing up? I'm like,
oh no,
nothing, never mind. I just can't sleep. He's just like, all right, well, it's late. You better get to bed. And I'm like, and at that point, I'm like 11 or something, and I'm just like, ain't no sleep coming for me tonight. And but that was my first official one of somebody else being in the house other than us, other than the immediate family. So
I love it. So what you're saying is the strangest thing you've ever seen is the thing you didn't see.
I guess so. But
I love it.
The sound, I mean, if somebody's tapping knocking on your door, there's somebody on the other side of it. You just know there is.
That's great. That's great stuff, man. And
so for that not to be there was whew,
yeah, I can imagine.
Tough.
What can you say to that one, Boat? That's some creepy stuff right there. Well, listen,
that's
Spartan, thanks for chiming in, my friend. We hope to hear from you again. I know you've got a million of them, so call back anytime. Thanks very much, man.
All righty, thank you.
Adios.
all right. We are going to bring a new caller onto the stage. They're coming in hot and heavy.
All right. And they got it.
So, hello, caller. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hey, this is TSI Matt. I'm calling from the great town of Hurricane.
Yes, another local boy.
Pretty much.
How's it going,
Pretty
man?
much
good.
directly in between the two goofs on the screen.
Oh,
That's right. Your Amigos Studios Central.
Goof 3.
Yeah.
I don't
and
know any of
the
your
King Dong of the TeamSpeak regulars.
Oh,
Thank you
you're
very
right.
much.
I'm sorry. I forgot. You are. Pat's in there more, but you're still king. Now,
Oh, okay.
I don't know a whole lot about your wacky antics or any stories like this. So I'm dying to hear what you've got for us tonight. What is the strangest thing you've ever seen?
Well, it's not really seen. It's kind of more along the lines of Pat's.
Okay.
And actually, I thank you to Teresa if she's listening, because she actually explained what it was at one point. And you've actually heard this.
Okay.
It's happened on 2 separate occasions. I'd be at home alone, back when one time was one of my early teens, and then the second time was actually in a different house in young adult. But I'd be home in my room, playing on computer, whatever, and I'd hear the door open, close. Someone move through the house, go into my parents' bedroom, shut the door. A few minutes later, door opens, hear it going out, door opens and closes, and that. And then a little bit later, my parents actually come home.
And this happened more than once.
Yes. And Teresa actually explained that apparently my mom or my dad, probably my dad, has some sort of a thing where, I forget what she called it, but effectively, if you come home, or about a half hour or so before they arrive, their essence arrives, I guess.
Their essence?
Or something like that. I forget exactly how she explained it, but
so
yeah, it's kind of weird.
So part of them gets there early.
Yeah.
It's funny because I'm always about 20 minutes late, and my essence shows up 3 hours later. That's my stupid
I'm
essence.
still waiting on your essence to get here tonight.
I know. It's pathetic, Bode. It's pathetic. That is some crazy stuff. Now, just while you're on here, Matt, I'm going to put you on the spot here.
All right.
Now, that's some crazy stuff. But have you ever, in your travels, have you ever
There's an even better one there, but I'll get to it in a minute.
There's a better one. Well, that's what I wanted to hear. Go ahead, man.
It didn't happen to me.
Okay.
But sort of the same thing. My sister was in her house at the time, and my baby niece was, or young, probably, I don't know, 2-3-year-old, whatever, was back in her room playing, and she heard their front door open. And she was, of course, my sister was in the kitchen, and she heard someone go back into my niece's bedroom and shut the door. Well, of course, she freaks out because she's there alone and runs back and can't open the door. So she calls in a panic, calls my dad. He drives over there and is able to just open the door, and my niece is just in there playing like nothing's going on. I can't explain that, but
that's weird stuff there. So basically, stay away from doors in any of the places you know or have relatives. That's what I get out of this. Crazy stuff.
Probably.
Now, in your current abode, has anything happened to you, Matt?
No. Thankfully, no. Now, remember another
I'm sure
time.
some things have happened to you in your current abode, but nothing paranormal, supernatural.
Nothing paranormal, yeah.
No kidding, eh?
Usually alcohol related, but nothing paranormal.
No, you're kidding me. Not you. Well, listen, Matt. Hey, I'm glad you got up enough jack to give us a ring. We appreciate it, my friend. Don't be a stranger. Please come back anytime. Thanks for coming around with your crazy stories. Adios.
Right. Later.
Boat, let's take a quick break. We'll get the next caller up, and we will be back in 2 shakes with more Conversations from the Darkside.
Shopping, dining, beautiful lakes and rivers, and a monster? Welcome to Braxton County, West Virginia. Centrally located, Braxton County, West Virginia is the ideal place to visit. Natural beauty and recreation abound with 2 beautiful lakes for easy kayaking and canoeing, and many hiking trails. Did we mention the Flat Woods Monster? That's right. Visit Braxton County, West Virginia's Flatwoods Monster Museum and not only learn about the Flatwoods Monster, but walk in the same footsteps as the people who witnessed it. Nearly all of our attractions can be found within a few miles of Interstate 79. Visit us online at braxtonwv.org. That's braxtonwv.org. Braxton County, West Virginia. Center yourself here.
It's the world's only Mothman Museum, the premier destination for Mothman fans. The Mothman Museum is the only place where you can see the largest collection of props and memorabilia from the Mothman Prophecies movie, and read rare historical documents from the Scarborough Mount Mothman eyewitnesses themselves documenting what they experienced that fateful night on November 15th, 1966. The museum is located right next to the Mothman statue on Main Street in Point Pleasant.
You are experiencing Conversations from the Darkside.
All right, we are back and ready to rock and roll. We've had some interesting stories so far, and we've got another person queued up, ready to come in. And bam, right on time. Who is this, and where are you calling from?
This is the Brent.
Oh,
And I have to say, I knew this show was starting, and I have a story, Aaron, that you are not privy of, but it very much involves your neighborhood. Well, my neighborhood too.
that's good. So you live right across the street.
For those not in the know, our neighborhood has an old section and a new section, and the old section is above everything else, and then you drive down a hill and it enters a newer part of our development, which has actually got its own new addition on top of that. But when we were growing up, when I was a child, I was 9 or 10 at the time, in the lower part of the development was a small forest. Aaron, do you remember that small
Absolutely.
forest?
I used to play it down there all the time. Right, just that weird stretch of woods that was right between two houses. It was strange.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I know that one.
It probably had about, 40 or 50 trees.
It was like,
And it was obviously
probably like a half acre or an acre, maybe.
Yeah, it was a planned forest because the trees were all pretty much in rows. Now, I didn't know this as a child, of course, but looking back on it, I believe that's what it was. And the trees always gathered a large amount of birds. And this was a big problem for the neighborhood because the birds were so loud that they would literally echo throughout the night. And the neighborhood tried many, many things to get rid of these birds. Aaron, do you remember them setting off fireworks and playing the loud music to try to scare the birds out?
It's funny that when you mentioned it, I totally had forgotten about that. But yes, there were a ton of birds there. What do they expect? It's a crap load of trees. I mean, what else is going to happen? You know?
But this is a almost supernatural amount of birds because in our development, outside of this grove of trees, I mean, there are tons of trees. In West Virginia, there's trees everywhere, and this is no exception. But in this small grove of trees, a astronomical amount of birds would always gather, and they were incredibly loud. So, in my youth, those grove of trees was somewhere we played. I mean, there's a lot of things you can do. You can build forts. Great place for like a hide and seek. And it's just dense enough to obscure your vision, but not so dense that you get lost in it. You can almost always, unless you're in the very middle, you could almost always see the way out looking in any direction. So we would play in that grove of trees, and like I said, the birds were always a problem, always a massive amount of birds. And when I would play with other neighborhood kids my age, and this was probably in the 10 to 12 range of age, and we went to the middle of that forest and we would build little forts. And we found, I don't want to call it like a stick doll, but it was obviously a crafted shape.
It's a Blair Witch kind of thing.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
But it was not made of twigs. It was made of pine needles, because all the trees around it were pine variety. And it was always odd to me that in the middle of this place, this formed figure, and we picked it up and we kind of laughed about it. And one of the kids I was with actually destroyed it, just ripped it up. You know, we had our laugh about it. And so we went along our day, played, got called home for dinner, night fell, and we all went our separate ways. And of course, the birds were cackling and doing their normal things as they always did. And we came back the next day, or it might have been several days down the line. It's a very hazy memory. But we went back and we were playing our games, not even thinking about the little figure that we found. But there was another little figure, the same kind of mixed weaves of pine needles and sort of humanoid shape. It was more, it's just like a straight line with kind of things going off to the side. There was another one, and it was just slightly bigger than the one we had found before. And it was kind of eerie. Truth be told, what I believe this was actually the nest of the birds from above. Portions of their nest would falter and fall down to the forest floor. But when you saw it and you would look at it, it had such a human shape and a human figure that it almost seemed supernatural. And it's something that always stuck in my mind, that in this grove of trees, that the birds were making little human figures, maybe to try to drive us out of the neighborhood, because they clearly had a claim on the land.
What?
I always thought that was very interesting.
I love that. So first of all, you're telling me that the man-shaped objects you found were just discarded parts of the nest that happened to be shaped like a man? That's creepy.
Well, looking back at the time, we were just like, crap.
Yeah,
there's
no
this
kidding.
other thing again.
Did you talk to Mom about this? Your theory about the birds?
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not. But it definitely stuck in my head. And to go one step further, and this is completely separate from the story, but we had one of the kids I played with was this super, I don't want to say he was into death, right? But he was fascinated by the whole death thing. Because he would find dead animals and he would demand that we had burials for them. And we would put dead birds, mostly birds. I think there was a
How many
squirrel.
dead animals were we finding? I mean, I probably found 5 dead animals in my life.
We buried at least a half a dozen birds.
You didn't go to the dead bird forest boat. Holy days! So you had little burial ceremonies for these animals you would find?
Well, he was obsessed with it. Not really my thing, right?
I hope not.
Especially back in there. But he would, anytime he had an animal and it was dead, he would demand that we went and buried it properly. And his older brother, who would have been, 16 to our 12, would always tell him, don't touch the bird. The birds could have diseases. And he would be just steadfast, saying, no, we have to bury these birds. And not like he was possessed. I'm not saying that. But his conviction over this one crazy topic of burying these dead things that he found
Did he give a little eulogy when you
That's what I
buried
was
the
wondering.
birds?
Was there a ceremony, or was it just a digging a
There
hole?
was a ceremony of sorts,
There-
but it wasn't anything like, oh, the bird must be sent back to its nest. It was nothing like that. He was a very religious kid,
Uh-huh.
but it was the kind of religious kid that you can tell he's just trying to mimic what his parents felt or parents did. And although I did not know them,
Maybe they
in
worked
any
at a
kind of-
mortuary.
Well, no, no, but he made a ceremony of it. It wasn't that there was a built-in ceremony, but he made a ceremony of it. He would lower the box into the hole, and he would say, I hope this bird lived well, or I hope he's at peace, that kind of thing. And then he would, cover up the hole. And we were never allowed, although we had to be there. There was 2 or 3 of us outside of him. Although we had to be here and witness all this, he would never let us dig the hole. He would never let us put the bird into the ground, and he would never let us cover the bird back up. And he would make little tombstones out of rocks and put them in a circle around the grave.
Like a druid?
And,
I was gonna say that sounds like a druid.
but I'm talking pebbles. Like when a lawnmower ran over it, it would just scatter them everywhere. It's not a sustained type of thing. But obviously he was mimicking something he's been taught or been told.
We're going to get a call from another kid in the neighborhood who tells us that he used to walk into those woods and find creepy Stonehenges that were arranged.
Well, here's the other thing. He would never bury the birds in that forest. He would always go behind his house across a creek and bury them in a separate area. That
Like
was
a
just
cemetery.
his place for putting the birds, the body.
Yeah.
So, just to wrap up the forest and the birds, this was as the development grew, right? The forest got removed. They eventually took all of the trees down and hauled them out of the development, and now they're housed where that little grove of trees sat. And I've always been curious if we should go back there someday, Aaron. I know we'd be trespassing, but I would love to
Break
see
in the house?
No. I would love to see if there's anything like that left, or if it has appeared again. Then you've got something supernatural. If you go walking around that property and you still are finding those needle creations, then you've got something. But something to keep in mind.
That
Maybe
sounds like
something
an
to do
ARG
someday.
presents special right there.
Listen, so just to summarize the Brent, the strangest thing you ever saw were humanoid-shaped bird twig statues.
Bird creations.
Sorry, that's better.
Humanoid shape.
That
bird
is,
creations.
I gotta say, you're the
We're
king
paddling
dong
us.
of the weirdest thing I've heard tonight. Congratulations. Hey, thanks for chiming in, the Brent. An excellent job, my friend. Thank you very much.
Have a good one.
Adios. I guess I should talk a little bit about some of the strange things I've seen in my life. I've seen a couple weird things, Bode, over the years, my friend. Of course, there's my famous melting witch story. I would say, when push comes to shove, that's probably the weirdest thing I've ever seen. Was that
right? That was.
bizarre
What was the
event.
weirdest thing you've ever seen that wasn't chemically induced, though?
I will say I've seen some pretty weird things that were chemically induced, if I'm honest. But all that said, I've been in a lot of places. One of the things that pops into my head was we were doing a ghost investigation of a place called the Whiffle General Store, which is a mine
Whiffle
store.
Company Store.
Yeah, the company store. You're familiar with it, aren't you?
Yeah,
It's
I drive by it often.
It's sort of really. What are you doing out there?
Whenever you go to Somersville, you got to drive
there
right
you
by
go.
it.
But anyhow, we were doing a ghost investigation in there. We were in the claws of that place, and now of course you know me. I was just screwing around, and the guy with us said, "Listen, if there's somebody in here, we want a sign." And at that point, the lights shut off, and a box whizzed off the shelf and hit the floor. Hand to God. Now the lights were off, so I didn't see the box hit the floor. But unless the host that was with us was a heck of a ambidextrous fellow. It fell on its own. That was pretty creepy. I don't put much faith in that sort of thing. But the one of the stranger things I saw was on the trip up to the store, they found marijuana growing in the staircase on the way down to the store.
Well, that's not that strange. I mean, think about where
strange.
you are.
It was the strange part was one of the chicks in our tour group went over and got a pot and dug it up, took it home. That was the strange part.
So when you were in the old Whipple Company store, I mean, have you been on multiple tours? Maybe that's part of the act, you know?
I've been in there once, but I will say one thing I learned is, like, I'm too big to be walking in the attic. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
Because I was afraid I would fall to the floor to my death.
Didn't they, and I think that you might have told me this, didn't they wasn't the funeral parlor in the attic?
They had a bunch, yeah. Well, everything's been everywhere in that store. And so we've seen a lot of weird stuff. Well, why don't we take a quick break? We'll see if we can get somebody in here. We will be back in 2 shakes of a lamb's tail. Until this, enjoy a little something about Point Pleasant, West Virginia.
That's right, Jim. We're here on the grounds where the most recent Mothman sighting has occurred. And I gotta say, it's pretty creepy out here. It was last seen around Point Pleasant, West Virginia, terrorizing 2 elderly ladies. The poor old ladies were just trying to enjoy their bingo night when Mothman appeared out of nowhere. Oh,
Do not fear the Mothman. Please leave all windows and doors unlocked when you come to visit Point Pleasant, West Virginia.
You are experiencing Conversations from the Darkside.
All right. I think we have someone on the line. Boat?
Hello, caller. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hey, buds. This is Frazzled One, and I'm calling from, well, a very, very dark region.
An undisclosed location, eh, Fraz?
Well, it's someplace I'd rather not be.
There you go. Well, listen, thanks for calling in tonight, my friend. We're looking forward to hearing your tale about the strangest thing you've ever seen.
Well, there's so many different experiences, just oddball stuff that I'm having trouble really choosing.
Well, pick a winner, my friend. Go over the top
you've
3.
been involved, and you've been involved in a few of them.
Well, we don't want to get that out there. Pick a couple.
Oh yeah, we do. Okay, I'll start with something short. One time, I happened to be at our esteemed host's house visiting. We get out of the car. I'm sitting there talking to him. I turn around for a second. I turn back, and he's gone.
Freaky.
You remember this one?
No. What happened?
Well, I'm looking around, and I'm just like, where did you go? And I thought you'd been beamed up or something.
You're talking about me? Me?
Yes.
Okay. So I disappeared? I don't know what you're talking about here.
You disappeared? Oh, you know the story.
No, I don't.
You just don't remember the story.
Keep going.
Tell us the rest of the story.
Well, anyway, I'm looking around, and finally I figure out where Aaron had gone. Apparently he had, and this, for me, was very bizarre, but I turned around, and he was at ground level.
Falling through the floor is what you're saying.
Apparently there was a sinkhole or something in his front yard that he fell right into.
Listen, I know what you're talking about now, Spudhead. That's what the strange thing you ever saw. What happened here, folks? This is a tragedy, actually, Boat. I got a lawsuit in my hands.
You pulled a disappearing act
No.
on me, dude.
So I'm walking to take the Chudley there in the car, the Fraz, and we've got one of those manholes in the front yard. And you know,
It was a sinkhole. It was a gateway to the nether region.
It was a gateway to my nether regions because I went groin deep into a manhole. And let me tell you something, brother. I had a paranormal experience. I wondered if I was ever going to walk, talk, or do anything else again with that region of my body. It was brutal down there because some jerk had came around and taken the center part out of the manhole. You know what I'm talking about? They got like a little hole. Well, I went down the little hole, and I went groin deep into that sucker. It sucked, man. Of all the things to bring up, you spudhead, man, did that hurt. And did anyone help me? No. They cackled with delight at my pain.
No, I helped you. I helped you get out of there.
You laughed so hard
I
you
brought
were
you
in the
back
road
from,
on your back.
I brought
laughing.
you back from the nether regions, dude.
Yeah, listen. That was brutal. That was so brutal. Come on, give us something else. What else do you got? Not that. A real, proper, strange thing you've seen. Man, that hurt.
Yeah, I know.
All right, let's hear it.
Real proper strange thing that I've seen.
Yeah.
Ah. Dude, I've been pondering this, and I'm trying to think of something. I don't know. Would strange flammable objects count?
Absolutely.
Is this the tennis ball story again?
Again?
This is a great story, Bode. Is that what you're talking about, Fran?
That's exactly what I'm
All
talking
right.
about.
You got to tell this one because a lot of people
I mean,
are
I've never.
first-time
Yeah.
listeners here.
This is a great story.
Okay, it's not really the strangest thing, but I will say it was. It did freak me out at the time. Basically, I had back in my younger years, and I could say this was probably youthful stupidity is what I'm calling it. Was kind of into the scene, like not really doing hacks or anything like that, but just reading different things people would do, just this wacky stuff. And,
BBS hacker crack doc stuff.
Yeah,
like the
Anarchist
Anarchist
Cookbook.
Cookbook. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Aaron. I came upon this one text file that was describing how to make something really cool with a tennis ball and some match heads, and I was like, huh. This looks like this could be really awesome. Well, the trick was to basically put like a slit in a tennis ball and then put a cross slit at a 90-degree angle to it. So you would open up a hole in the tennis ball and then you would cut the ends off match heads, stuff this thing in the tennis ball. When you're done, you put a piece of duct tape on it and you throw it and it'll shoot around like a rocket. And I was like, yeah, this sounds pretty cool. Well, again, youthful stupidity. I decided to do this in my bedroom late one night. Needless to say, I was doing this and I was using, I think it was a file or something, screwdriver, to try and push the match heads.
I think we said it was a pencil. We were using a pencil.
I don't even remember what it was, but I was just trying to pack them as tight as possible. Well, unfortunately, what happens when match heads, when they get packed tight and when they strike each other after a while, well, they'll all ignite. Well, I have never been more freaked out because I'm sitting here, I'm pushing a match head in this tennis ball, and the thing launches. And in about 2 seconds, it had flown around my room, hit every wall. I had posters on the wall of like cars and stuff. Everything that this thing touched, it decimated. Those posters, it's like if a match head hit it was like, poof, it's gone. So I lost all my posters.
Because it was throwing out match heads from the country.
Yes, and the thing is, it's almost like this thing is screaming around my room. And I'm just like, what? I'm freaking out. The only thing I can think to do is grab my trash can, run into the bathroom, and start trying to fill it up with water and put out all the little fires popping up everywhere. Well, my mom catches this again. This was late, and she asked me what I'm doing, and I was like, I basically told her, I was like, I can't talk now. I gotta put the fire out. There's like a pause of about 2 seconds, and all of a sudden, what? She starts yelling for Dad. Well, needless to say, after this whole incident occurred, fire department came. I remember looking in the morning. The sun was just coming up. It was dawn, and 2 of the firemen took my smoldering mattress where the tennis ball finally decided to land and had a large hole in it out the front door and set it in the yard. And I was like, great.
No. Now, I'm going to ask you, what did you tell the firemen and your mom and dad? Because you can't tell them the truth. We know that. So what baloney, what weapons-grade baloney did you come up with to tell them that what happened?
Well, my mom had actually asked. She's like, were you smoking? And I was like, no. I said there was a box of matches sitting on my desk, and I bumped it, and then they just went everywhere. They just
That's
lit.
the best you can come up with?
Were they buying it? Oh, no.
No.
Oh, absolutely not.
Didn't you tell me that there were little tiny pinpoint burns all over the room where those match heads that came out and scorched everything?
Yeah, remember that Genius tablet that I had with the little puck on it that I used for a mouse for years? That had little dimple marks in it from all the match heads all over it.
Listen.
To this day, they hired somebody to come in and clean everything up, change the carpet and stuff. But to this day, there's kind of like a marble thing on the windows here in the house. There's still a scorch mark on the one in my bedroom from where that happened.
Listen.
That they couldn't get out.
That is a top I can imagine. I'm going to say this is a qualifying story, Boat, because if you saw this happen, this would be the strangest thing you've ever seen. So we can say, Chudley, as we take this to a close, the strangest thing you ever seen was a flaming, fire-spewing tennis ball that destroyed your room.
Yeah, and I would advise against this. One lesson that I learned from this is if you're going to do anything with pyrotechnics, anything that could potentially cause fire, do it outside.
That is a wise life lesson from a man who's done a lot of crazy stuff over the years.
And just to close out here, next time I'll get the details right, but next time I'll tell you what you don't want to do with electricity.
There you go. Something to look forward to. Thank you very much, Frazzled One, for chiming in, and adios.
All right. We have another new caller on the
right.
line. And by new caller, I mean a caller that's calling back for another story.
What? You got
That's
a
right, Aaron.
repeat already?
We've got a repeat.
Okay, who is it?
Well, we're waiting on him to join the old call. There we go.
All right.
Welcome back, Brent.
Oh, what?
You know, I was sitting here, I was hearing all the other stories. The story I gave before was from my childhood, very, very young, 10, 12 range. I have another one that probably fits the category a little more sound when I was 17, 18-year-old. Something you do, because there's not a lot to do in West Virginia. So something that we would do would go on random road trips. We would just pick a West Virginia hollow and just drive it. And my friend Rita would come with me on these, and we would go out Rita's Random Roads. And Rita's Random Roads would often...
Wait a minute, she had a name for her gimmick?
Yeah, Rita's Random Roads.
Okay, well, there you go.
So, on one of... this is not something we did once or twice. I mean, we would have done this dozens of times. So we were very familiar with all of the back roads of West Virginia in the area. And one time we were out, and we had dropped off some other people, and we were wrapping up a night of just hanging out and whatnot. And she was like, you know what, I don't want to go home. Let's go and just drive around. And this, just for clarification, this was not a romantic relationship. We were strictly friends, and we were both very happy with that. So I said, you know what, cool, let's go. Rita's random roads. Where do you want to go? So she just picked a direction, and we started driving off. And this was about 7:30, not too late, but not too early. And this was a summer day, so the sun was still in the air and giving off plenty of light. So we're driving, and we finally realize that we aren't just lost. We are ridiculously lost. We have went from wonderful pavement to pothole-filled pavement to gravel, and we are now on a dirt road in the West Virginia hills.
That's the way the roads go in this state. The further out you go, the
Absolutely.
more horrible the roads get, and it doesn't take long.
And my rule for Rita's random roads is we never double back, because all of West Virginia roads eventually lead around and join up with themselves, and you find familiar territory. So by the time we realize we are really lost, we're at like 9:30, 10 o'clock at this point. And Rita says, listen, I know we're never supposed to double back, but this is getting out of hand. And I said, Rita, trust me, I think I know where we're at. I'm lying out my butt. And I said, but I am worried about one thing. And she said, what's that? I said, we're almost out of gas.
Oh.
And her face just turned pale, and we're going out this dirt road. And we drive it, and we get to a decision, left or right. And I said, which way you want to go? And she said, well, you're the one that knows where we're at. So pick a direction. I said, I think we want to turn right here. And we turn right, and the road goes from dirt to just like grass. It's no longer a road, it's a path. And we're driving my old Taurus down this path. And she's finally like, listen, I'm done. Turn us around. We're gonna die out here. And I was like, no, don't worry about it. We're fine. Well, this path was dirt for a reason. It was a driveway. And we come up on this house at 10 o'clock at night. There's a man standing out by a flaming trash barrel. And we roll up on him, and his eyes just get as big as saucers, right, in our headlights. And you see him flick his wrist, and he's got a dog sitting there, and the dog goes ballistic. Now, from his perspective, right, this dude is miles and miles and miles in the West Virginia hills, not expecting anyone to roll up on him. He's probably just as freaked out as we are. But this dog charges us. We're in the car.
He charges the car. Wow.
And the dog is coming at us. And it's a big dog, right? Thing's barking. It is up. Its paws are up on the glass on the passenger side door. I'm kicking the thing in reverse, but I'm like, man, if I hurt this dog, this dude's just going to shoot and kill us, and they're never going to find our bodies. So,
and he'll take your car.
Well, here's the crazy thing, right? You know how mostly, when you get this far out, the best you can hope for is most people are living in trailers. This dude didn't live in a trailer. He lived in a shack. And I don't mean to disparage. This is, people live how they want to live. But this thing was dilapidated and scary. So this dog is up on the window. Rita is screaming at the top of her lungs. I'm throwing the car in reverse, but I don't want to swing around and hurt the dog. So I'm backing up slowly, and she goes over and grabs the wheel and twists the wheel. I'm trying to back straight back. She grabs the wheel and twists the wheel, and the dog jumps off of the, it was up on the car, and it bounces back down. And I'm like, what are you doing? She's like, we gotta go. This guy's gonna kill us. We turn around, I peel out just far enough, and I'm looking behind us, and I swear to you, Aaron and John, this guy pulled a gun on us.
This does not surprise
No.
me. Yeah.
I got trying to deliver pizza. I know how these people are.
So the dog is still going nuts, right? It's still chasing us in this road. We fly. Bam! We're down the road, and we're traveling as fast as this dirt road will allow us to go. And it's, we had the choice to turn left or right. Well, we just go straight because would have been the other choice at this point. And the dog is still following us. It followed us, no kidding, no less than a mile down the road, barking and going ballistic because you can't go fast on these roads. They're little death traps as they are. They're little switchbacks, and we went off the dirt, but now we're, on like a graveled crap road. Finally, the dog gives up, leaves us alone. We get back, and I swear to you, that is the very last time Rita ever went with me on Rita's random roads.
Yeah.
It scared me.
This was a horrible dating ploy, Brent. This is a horrible dating ploy. If this is what your plan was.
I want to throw another dog one related in here since I have the floor. Now this is recent time. This is in the past 3 or 4 years. I came home late at night. This was it would have been longer than that because I was still working at Dow. So this was probably 8 or 9 years ago. I worked crazy shifts. Came home all hours of the night. I'm coming off of getting paged out. It's probably 3:30 in the morning, and I pull into my driveway, and I'm just beat down, right? And I open the door, and 3 massive dogs are walking towards me. It startled me so much that I closed the door and started the car back up so I could run. And these dogs come beside the car, and they cross over the road, going up the road towards your house, Aaron, for those that are familiar. And I sat there until they are out of sight. But I swear to you, I have never seen dogs larger. These could have been wolves in Hurricane, West Virginia. They were that big. And they were traveling in a pack. There was definitely 3 of them.
I can't help but notice that you didn't give me a call to warn me of the killer wolves in the front yard, Brent.
Holy crap. Yeah, I was terrified. I don't get terrified of animals. I'm a big guy. I'm pretty confident that if I get attacked by a 60, 70-pound dog, if I fall on it, I'm going to win, right? That's my mentality. Truth or not, that's the way I rationalize things in my head. But these beasts, these masses of canine were so scary that I was going to run from my own home. Terrifying. One more story, and then I will yield the floor. Another animal story. Where we live in West Virginia is fairly built up. You still have rabbits and squirrels and that sort of thing. And it is not out of the ordinary to see a random deer in our neighborhood, in this area. But I was driving around with another one of my friends. And by the way, in West Virginia, just driving around is something you do. So there you go.
He's right.
So I'm driving around a neighborhood, 2 neighborhoods over from where I live. And I am pulling around the corner, and this is a sort of a foresty neighborhood. They respect the land sort of thing. They built their houses with tearing down as few trees as possible. So it's not crazy to see a deer or 2 in this area. But I turn the corner, and I promise you 100%, if there weren't 24 deer, then I don't know how to count. And they were some of the most densely packed animals I've ever seen in my entire life. And if anyone's ever seen a deer, when you make a noise, when you startle, they all look. They look at where the noise is from. And so when they looked at me and caught their eyes in my headlights, it was like I was being stared daggers from a dozen different sources. it was the creepiest thing I've ever seen in wildlife. And they all just looked at me, and they didn't panic, and they didn't scatter. They all just looked at me like I was on their turf. And if I didn't get the heck out of there, they were gonna make me leave. It was one of those things. We stopped. Now the road goes on around the corner. We didn't do that. We stopped. We backed up, turned around, and left the area. So many deer. It was a huge herd of deer. It was very awesome.
That is, well, I will say I can't confirm huge herds of deer. I've seen many of them back when I was delivering pizza, and they would take up entire fields, massive amounts of deer, scary amounts actually. It is bizarre how many live around here. Well, Brent, those were some creepy stories, especially the dog ones, because that's always a fear of mine, of getting brutally mauled by 3 mystery wolves when I walk at the front door and take out the garbage at 1 a.m. So that's all. Now every time I walk outside at night, I'll be looking around to see if it's a mastiff and it's 2 buddies coming to eat me. Thank you very much, Brent.
They were absolutely hellhound sized.
Very good.
If
you had to say
if the original hellhound could split itself into 3 individual dogs, that's what passed my car that night.
Oh my god! By the way, FYI, I make Luke call them heck hounds. That's just me. Thank you very much, Brent. Have a good evening.
Guys.
Adios.
All right, Aaron. We have a couple more callers on the line here.
We'll take what, 2 more?
Let's go with 2 more.
Okay, who's next?
We got Matt. TSI Matt is back. He's back with more stories.
Hey guys.
Oh man, what's up, TSI Matt? Back for more. What do you got?
Yeah, well, I didn't get to the story. You cut me off before the story I was actually going to tell.
That was mostly boat. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Matt.
I disagree, but okay.
The floor is yours.
Well, I mean, besides
I'm sure you're laying on it by now.
Guy wearing the full fur coat in the pool, but yeah.
Well, that is a good
All
one.
Kidding. All kidding aside. Yeah, when I was probably 6 or 7, I was playing in the front yard with my, of course, out where my parents live, he was out in the country. So, and up from where they live, just up the hill a little bit, is a graveyard. So anyway, a friend of mine and I were sitting there playing in the front yard. I look over, and there's someone at the edge of the woods just standing there staring. And they're kind of pale. What in the world? And I motion to my friend, and he looks over and sees it too. And of course, we just get up and go on, or kind of scared and run off.
So, did you ever see him again?
No, that was the only time.
So let me get this straight. Let me summarize. You're standing out. You're with your buddy. You look over it at the edge of a woods.
Yeah.
A thin, pale man is standing quietly watching your every move.
Pretty much, yeah.
Did he move at all as you saw him?
Nope.
And how close were you?
Not that close, probably 100 feet or so.
Holy smokes. What do you think about that?
Was he pale all through and through, or was just his skin pale? Was he wearing a suit? Was it Slender Man?
I don't think it was Slender Man, but
okay. Just making sure.
Very, very bizarre. Now, see, that's straight up creepy. It could have been Edgar Winter, as might be my guess. That's just you never know.
Random Edgar Winter sighting.
Yeah,
edge of a field in Hurricane, West Virginia.
He didn't see he put his guitar down and take a break and look at the kids. That's what happens. That is creepy, though, the old guy watching you from afar, because you never know what that is.
Yeah.
Is that just some guy that's come out of the woods taking a breath? Is it a guy just looking at the children and thinking about his glory days as a kid? Is he some kind of weird predatory freak? Is he a monster?
Yeah.
Who knows what he is? He's a serial killer? You never know.
Exactly.
And
yeah.
you've got to live with not knowing, Matt.
True. But I mean, that was like 35 years ago, so meh.
Well, listen. Man, I tell you what, if you walk out in your yard tomorrow night, in the backyard, or after you get off the phone here, and you look over your fence and he's standing there, get back with us.
Well, in the schoolyard.
Yeah, that would be double creepy. Super creepy, mate. You got any more?
Not off the top.
Okay, man.
I thought you were just going to fade away there,
Thanks for calling back. That was super creepy. The strangest thing Matt ever saw, appended, slender, creepy, pale guy leering from woods. That's much creepier in a boat.
Yeah.
Well done, Matt. Thanks for coming in, my friend.
And now we move to
Adios.
we move to our final caller of the night.
All right,
who is
bring
presently
him
joining us. So, Aaron, this as we bring this episode to a close, first the inaugural episode of Conversations from the Darkside has been everything you thought it would be.
Well, it's been less. We haven't crashed or anything yet, so that's not bad.
I agree.
We didn't have to talk to each other for an hour. That's pretty good. So
that is pretty good.
I'm pretty happy with it.
Well, that's great. So we bring on our final caller of the evening. The one, the only Spartan rejoins us.
What?
For more tales of daring do.
We got a lot of reruns already. What's going on? What's going on, Sparty? You got another one?
Yes, well, I got two here. One I almost wasn't gonna tell ever. Period. No, let's go ahead and do that one. But before that, I love to talk, and I know you love to talk. And I remember one time that we were both speechless over something we saw, and we're the only two people that saw it.
All right, remind me of what this was, because my memory's tapioca.
We were going on, one of the things we used to call a run, where you just go out and randomly drive around, kind of like what Brent was doing, because that was entertainment.
The run.
When we were in high school.
Yeah.
College. So we were driving, and, because my grandfather was a constable, I know a lot of the back roads. From you delivering pizza, you know a lot of the back roads. So we were driving out, I believe it was Turkey Creek.
Yes.
And we went so far out that we drove past the church.
Yes.
Cut through a piece of grass that just had tire tracks in it, down a hill to a farm that had the cows. And our car was chased by a mom who was because it had a baby calf or a calf around there somewhere, and we slowed down to look at the calf, and the mom chased us. Do you remember that part?
Oh God, I do remember that, actually.
Because we're like, hey, the baby cow, look, it's a little calf, look how cute, and all of a sudden
we were, by the way.
The
we're
big
idiots.
cow church. Yeah, we were. So, but anyway, we followed that, and somehow that road ended us up in Tornado.
Yeah.
Which, there's no logical way those two towns and roads should ever attach close to each other. But remember, we drove over that hill. As we're cresting that hill, we see that entire cemetery cloaked in red.
Oh, yes. I do remember
that red glow. Yes. And we're laughing and talking, and the music's on, and we're like, and then, at that point, everything stops. And you're just like, what the hell? I was like, because I think you looked at me like, do you see this? Or somebody I think you were checking to make sure it just wasn't you. And I'm like, I see something. I don't know what the hell it is. Because it was just a big red glow. And the closer we got to it, it ended up being a cemetery. And the cemetery, people had taken the time to go around and affix a glass candlelight-ish lamp to every tombstone.
Yeah.
So I guess it's a memorial service or something. So they lit the candles and the red glass glowed, but since every single tombstone had one, it lit the entire dark. I mean, because it was dark up there. There were no other lights around.
Yeah, that was weird. It was
That
was
whole
very
cemetery
odd.
was just glowing.
Yeah,
red.
Every one of those, every grave had a red lantern affixed to it, for whatever reason, and that was a creepy sight coming over the hill at a cemetery to see.
That shut us both up, and that rarely ever happens.
That's true.
Oh.
That is. Jeez,
So-
I had forgotten all about that, Patty. That is creepy. What do you think of that, Blake? You ever heard of anyone doing that at a cemetery or church, putting candles on like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think probably if it
Not
was
everyone though. I mean, enough to you
that's
could
a lot of work.
That's
That's
like
a
you
lot
could
of
have
read by
100
it.
at least of those things out there. Yeah, it was bizarre.
But it was all reds. Just, and you're driving and it's pitch black dark and your windows are
that's-
down. It's a warm night, and just to crest a hill when you're out in the middle of nowhere. Like I said, the last main event was a cow chasing you.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, and you
right.
cross this hill, and the whole hillside is just glowing red with lanterns and tombstones. It's just
That's a weird
shocking.
one. That's a weird one. That's a weird one, Spartan.
Okay. And this one, I don't think anyone's ever heard me tell. And you and I have talked a lot about weird stuff. This goes back to high school. I was dating a young lady. And I was going over to her house, and I was driving down the road to her house. She had lived on a dirt road, and I'm driving, listening to music, winds is down, and just like there's somebody walking in the road, but not like in the road, like just close enough on the berm of the road to make you think you're gonna hit them, just because it's real dark. You just came up on him real quick, and I'm like, whoa, I swerve out of the way. And it was this old dude wearing almost like a brown tweed suit and a hat. And he was just old looking. It's just weird, just a weird dude, and just be out walking at night on a dead end road. He had to be coming from her house. I had no idea who he was. So I go to the house, and I'm talking with her, and her grandma lived with them. And her grandma was from Trinidad, if I'm not mistaken. And we were talking, and I said, "Oh, by the way, your grandpa doesn't. I mean, is your grandpa here too, or something like that?" And she's like, "Well, no, he passed away. It's just grandma." And I'm like, "Well, that's weird because there's this old dude walking on the road, and I almost hit him." And she's like, "Oh, there's nobody on the road. There shouldn't be anybody walking around the road." I said, "Well, no, there's somebody on the road. Almost hit him." And she was like, "What'd he look like?" And I said, "It was an old dude in a tweed suit." She goes, "Was he wearing a hat?" And I said, "Yeah." And she goes, "Did he, and she kind of described a little bit. And I'm like, "Yeah, kind of look like that. Why?" And she says, "Are you an angry person?" And I said, "Well, I mean, I was probably a 16-year-old high school kid, so yeah, I'd shoot for the, well, I had anger management issues, at that age, probably." And I said, "Oh, yeah, I lose my temper every once in a while." Of course, the answer to that was yes, yes, yes. And she said, in my religion, the body consists, I think she said, like 13 spirits, and if you feed one too much or don't feed one enough, if you don't feed it enough, it'll die. But if you feed it too much, it becomes strong enough to live independently from you. And the old man represents anger.
What religion is this?
I think it was
Old lady in the woods religion.
Well, no, she's
Oh,
from
man.
she was from Trinidad. So I'd say some
Trinidad,
type of
yeah.
I think it was some type of voodoo or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Man, that's jacked up. So you think you saw the ghost? You think you saw the incarnation of your own anger walking
That's
down
right.
the path?
And one night I was working in Charleston at a club, and it just been a particularly crappy night. And I was just really mad, bent, almost kind of night you want to quit. You're just fed up. It was tough, and I was going to the car, and I got in the car and I put it in reverse, and your back brake lights light up, and I look in the rearview mirror and I see an old dude in a tweed suit walking behind me.
You're still pissed off.
And well,
You're
then
still
it
mad.
was one of the angriest I'd ever been, at that point. And he showed up again. I've seen him 2 or 3 times, but only in points in my life when I really had like that uncontrolled, just anger management issue type things. But he pop up. But then, once you got something like that under control, he left and never came back. But 2 or 3 times, it was always the same person. It was always strange places that I would see him just walking past this boom, and then they're gone, But she believed in. She could name each one and describe what each one looked like and everything. But I mean, I guess there were love, anger, just different, all sorts of different ones. But for some reason that just stuck with me. And so yeah, a couple times I had seen that.
I will say this in closing, Spartan, because I know you and your wife very well. If you had an old guy in a tweed suit running around occasionally when you were mad, then your wife having to put up with you must have an army of old men that surround her all the time, like a fleet of old men, because you'd make her insane. So
I'd have to ask her.
Yeah,
but,
you better be nice about it. That's all I can tell you.
So anyway, for what it's worth, that was an old one from
that's good
I
stuff.
was 15 or 16, so
Good stuff,
there you
Spartan. Thank you very much for sharing with us, and we hope you'll be back for the next episode. Thank you very much,
Wouldn't
my
miss
friend.
it. Wouldn't miss it.
Thank you, man. Adios.
All right, take care, man.
Bye, Pat.
Time to take this thing to the house, Boatster. Listen,
All right.
everyone, we appreciate everyone participating, and feel free. We'll be back same bat time next Friday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, all through the month of October, and we will announce the next topic on Discord and Twitter. Boat, any parting thoughts on this one?
Thank you all so much for coming out and joining us on this first episode. We weren't sure how many people we would get, but I feel like this is a good first start, and I look forward to our next episode.
Yes. Thanks for showing up, everyone, and have a good weekend. Adios, everybody.
You have just experienced Conversations from the Darkside. Until next week, try to enjoy the daylight.